Hello, how are you? Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Great to be here.
St. James Fraser, Principal on Life Campus. Nathan Field, President of Michael Russell, Cabinet Secretary for Education and Lifelong Learning in the Scottish Government, and Phil Masterson, our Police Bearer. Your Royal Highness, my Lords, Vice-Chancellor, Cabinet Secretary, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Fescar maga I bhúile, amir san fáilte churaraf gan in huraf a seo an an ardiaclis an yeranish, se lá sonrichte agus laich triola seo an a nolhaich na gaeltoch agus na nielan. Chanelach blione fa hosin sinne unuwe olaich, agus as sin nische gael yn achéim, levis jehochig y van y Frans y rigol mar Chancellor yn olhaich. Am eisiau gymamo hochol gyda siach gynechtriol agus trang a sio gan hyloch rigol, agus as leich chochan ol a sio, am eisiau son taig lie o horst gan y van y Frans y rigol son y fi conlar yn yndiw. My name is Matthew McKeever, and I chair the court of the Highlands and Islands University, Scotland's newest university. It is my great pleasure to bid you all a very warm welcome to Inverness Cathedral this afternoon for what is a very special ceremony for this university. Let me give a special welcome to the Princess Royal, who is with us today and has accepted our invitation to become our first Chancellor. We understand that this is a very busy week for you, and we are all the more pleased to see you here today. I look around and I see a full and packed congregation. Around 500 people are here this afternoon to witness this installation ceremony. I'm not surprised. This is a day of celebration when we celebrate the next important step in the development of this University of the Highlands and Islands. This afternoon, we will install the Princess Royal as our first Chancellor. We will receive the University's coat of arms from the Lord Lion of Arms, and the patron of our Development Trust, Lord Mackay of Clashfern, will introduce two candidates for fellowships of the University, two of the people who worked so hard for so many years to make these happenings possible. Last August, in the building next door, the Eden Court Theatre, we asserted positively our status as a university. Today, we take the next step, conscious of the fact that our ceremony today is one that has been carried out many times in other universities. The installation of a Chancellor and the granting of a coat of arms carry with them centuries of tradition and are critical to the public perception of any university. We value and we cherish these values that have given higher education in Scotland such an enormous reputation over the years. And in that sense, we are no different to any other university. But we are different. We're different in other ways. Here in the Highlands and Islands, we have the opportunity to develop a new approach to post-16 education in Scotland. We can do this with a very distinctive curriculum and a delivery that brings together traditional methods and the use of new technology. We have much to offer, and this new university will be shaped to a large extent by the very nature of where we are and where we come from. The physical environment itself is a factor in defining our curriculum and the way in which it is delivered. I think in terms of the sea, the natural energy, the landscape, agriculture, the wildlife, tourism. In terms of recent developments, I think of renewable energy, oil and health. In terms of language, history and culture, I think in terms of a university that can offer courses that could be different from anything that is being offered anywhere in the world. Our curriculum must reflect the environment, the culture and the specialisms of our academic partners situated right across the Highlands and Islands, from Shetland in the north to Perth in the south, from Argyll in the west to Elgin in the east. So we are ambitious for this university, and we are ambitious for this very special part of Scotland. Today's formal ceremony sees us affirming our adherence to traditional values, whilst at the same time proclaiming our distinctiveness and our determination to succeed in the new world. So, let us begin our formal proceedings this afternoon. I will now ask the Principal and the Vice-Chancellor of the University of the Highlands and Islands, Mr. James Fraser, to provide an introduction to the installation of Chancellor.
Your Royal Highness, colleagues and distinguished guests, in August 2011, we launched the newly created University of the Highlands and Islands in Eden Court Theatre in Inverness. For an entirely new university, this was a very suitable launchpad. Eden Court Theatre is a visible symbol of both culture and modernity. We signal to the world the modernity of a new Scottish university born in the 21st century. Today, by contrast, we continue to lay the foundations of the university in a very different building, also in the city of Inverness. Inverness Cathedral speaks to the roots that even a new university has in the past. Universities throughout Europe grew out of the Christian church and still bear traces of their origins. We see this in the endurance of gowns, the devotion to ceremony, and we see it also in the inclusion of faculties of theology and in the value placed on collegiality. Finally, it is evidenced in the roles and offices of a university, amongst which the preeminent is that of Chancellor. Every university in Scotland is a member of a family whose roots stretch into an ancient past. By the end of the 16th century, Scotland had 6 universities. Today, in the installation of the first Chancellor of the University of the Highlands and Islands, we identify ourselves with this important tradition. As a community of staff, teachers, researchers, scholars, and students, we are delighted that Your Royal Highness has done us the honour of agreeing to be our first University Chancellor. Your Royal Highness is also Chancellor of the University of Edinburgh, an ancient university, and of the University of London, a 19th century university. With the addition of the University of the Highlands and Islands, a 21st century university, Your Royal Highness holds a trio of chancellorships that stretches across the United Kingdom and covers a complete chronology of university development. We are a newborn babe in such company, but we are proud to state our ambition to build an institution that will also have a reputation right across the world. The office of University Chancellor is well enshrined in both the history of Scotland and of England. From the very year of their original foundation, it exists and still exists in the ancient universities of Aberdeen, St Andrews and Glasgow in Scotland, Cambridge and Oxford in England. Even the newcomer University of Edinburgh, founded as late as 1583, was persuaded to introduce the concept, albeit as recently as 1858. Things sometimes take a long time in a university. Our Constitution states that the Chancellor shall be the titular head of the university, appointed by the court for such term and terms of office as the court may determine, who shall preside over ceremonies for the receipt by students of such degrees, diplomas, certificates, and other academic awards as may be granted by the university. Returning to the cathedral, 2 abstract but very important things come from the ecclesiastical origins of Western universities. Firstly, the notion that universities are self-governing, autonomous bodies. And secondly, the concept of academic freedom. Both concepts go to the heart of what a university should be. Universities assert the right, which churchmen asserted before them, of promulgating knowledge and truth without fear or favour. Indeed, ma'am, when John Knox, in exercising this right, went so far as to characterize the governance, and not as is popularly believed the gender, of some of your illustrious forebears as a monstrous regimen, I fear he caused much annoyance. However, in so doing, he laid down the foundations not just of Scotland's particular brand of reformation, but also of its democratic intellect. Universities must be vigilant to protect academic freedom. The installation of a chancellor of such distinction empowers the institution to claim its academic freedom and assert its autonomy. I'm glad that the Cabinet Secretary for Education and Lifelong Learning, Michael Russell, MSP, who is here today, has signalled his wish to make this principle a matter of statute. The installation of our first Chancellor symbolises our connection to the global university world. Whilst we are proud to serve our region, we must also aspire to create a global identity for our university. We want both to reverse the years of exodus of young people of talent from our region, but also to attract students and scholars from across the world. We will serve our people better if we attract other races, people with other cultures and outlooks. We seek to create an experience of global connection, a richness of ethnic blend and cultural variety. We want to share the beauty and complexity of our physical environment, whether land, sea, or loch, with other people in the world who value it. We want to share our rich cultural heritage of art, music, history, theology, and language with other peoples. And we want to be enriched by experiencing something of their own cultural heritage. This blend will illumine our own understanding of who we are, where we are going, and what future we're fashioning for the people who will come after us. It may be a truism that creativity and progress are found at the interfaces of natural and social sciences, of arts and humanities, but also where these interfaces are infused by ethnic and cultural diversity. Looking back to last Sunday, this is the week in which the nation marked the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. This splendid celebration was a fitting and appropriate tribute to Her Majesty's devoted service to the peoples of this island and the Commonwealth beyond our shores. And I speak on behalf of the university in conveying our recognition of this great achievement. Looking forward to Saturday, Inverness will host the Olympic torch. It is a reminder that our first Chancellor is the only member of the royal family ever to have competed in the Olympic Games as a member of the British equestrian team in 1976 in Montreal. The ancient Greeks would certainly have thought that the juxtaposition of such events an important omen for a new institution. Your Royal Highness, your family are in great demand as Chancellors. Your grandmother served, for example, as Chancellor of both the University of London and the University of Dundee. Your great-great-great-grandfather, Prince Albert, was Chancellor of Cambridge from 1847 to 61, and that after winning an election, as indeed your father, His Royal Highness Prince Philip, more than a century later. Your Royal Highness shares with Prince Albert the fact that you are the only two members of the royal family to have become university chancellors by election, and in your case, the University of London. Our Centre for History advises me that His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, in his capacity as Chancellor of the University of Edinburgh from 1953 to 2010, has established a world record for the longevity of chancellorships. Indeed, second place goes to his tenure of the Chancellorship of Cambridge. His record may be hard to beat, but we hope you may accept it as a challenge. We also hope and pray for his speedy recovery from his illness. The selection of its first Chancellor is a significant task for any university. In our case, whilst we had no hesitation in making our choice, our worry after learning that you were already Chancellor of London and Edinburgh was whether you might accept. We hoped that you might have been influenced by our commitment to the sea, or as a former Olympic equestrian by our commitment to equine studies. We know that you have visited several parts of our university over past years, and most recently our health faculty in Inverness. We would like to think that all these experiences had some influence on your decision. Needless to say, we were indeed greatly honored when you accepted our invitation. The installation of our first Chancellor is a foundation stone in the establishment of a newly crafted university. I therefore have much pleasure in pronouncing on behalf of the University Court the installation of Your Royal Highness to the office of Chancellor of the University of the Highlands and Islands. Universities are here to serve their students. Therefore, Chancellor, I now invite you to step forward and receive your robe of office from Nathan Shields, President of the UHI Students' Association.
Vice-Chancellor, Chairman, Lord Lieutenant, ladies and gentlemen, Feske Maegas Fercha Lea. Good afternoon and welcome to you all. But thank you, Vice-Chancellor, particularly for your very generous words of greeting. And may I just say that I was touched to be asked and delighted and humbled by that invitation and honoured to accept. So here I am as your first Chancellor of the University of the Highlands and Islands in these historic surroundings of the Inverness Cathedral, and with my grateful thanks for giving me this opportunity. And can I, while I mention that, thank Canon Alex Gordon and Bishop Strange for allowing us to host this prestigious ceremony here in such appropriate surroundings, and perhaps also to congratulate them on the excellent renovation work recently completed here to allow access for all to this beautiful building. But what an appropriate place to have this first ceremony. Vice-Chancellor, you touched on one or two areas that might have attracted me to the position. And I have to say that it did come at an interesting moment. Having just accepted Edinburgh, I thought you might consider this going too far. But having really grown up around the waters, and particularly the Western waters, in Her Majesty's Yacht Britannia, in Bloodhound, in our own boat in Blue Doublet, and more recently in the Northern Lighthouse Board's Pharos, which in fact is where I've come from just now, and walking from Sutherland to the south, staying with friends, understanding, I hope, some of the issues that are challenges to a university. Isolation, but also the answers to that isolation of understanding how to do it together is how you overcome that isolation. So it is a real pleasure to be able to take on this challenge. And it is only just over a year since the University of the Highlands and Islands was established. And of course, as Scotland's newest university, we do bear a great responsibility to carry on this prestigious tradition of education. And we must earn our position in this lineage by providing education to our students and their communities in a different way. My Oxford English Dictionary defines education as training for life, wherever you are. And that, I think, is the challenge for the university, and the ways in which we can do that, that it doesn't matter where you are, you still have that right to have that education and that access to that education, the training that you might need that is appropriate to you. You mentioned history in terms of the range of universities that I'm involved in, and you're quite right. There's quite often the opportunity to mention the historical connections. But this is a little different. We do have a history, oddly enough, but it perhaps comes from individuals. And there is not enough time for me to remind you of the people who have come from the area of the Highlands and Islands, who have succeeded and contributed way beyond the boundaries of where they came from and all over the world. And I think that is a history that you must build on, that understanding of education, the freedom that it gave them to make choices and to make an impact as and wherever they went. In an aside, I would have to say that in my travels abroad, I don't think there's a country I've ever been to where I haven't already found a Scot that's been in residence for some considerable time. They went there through their own efforts and their own skills, and they've made their lives successful because of that. Actually, that's quite a background to work from. They took advantage in the education that was on offer then and made something really special out of it. So we must build from that. And there has been a long and arduous journey for this newest university to create itself from that background. And I would like to congratulate now those who have been so determined in their pursuit of this university status and how well-timed it is in a modern concept. And we have our intentions which pave the road ahead. And the intentions of the University of the Highlands and Islands are founded, most of all, in the magnificent physical environment which defines it and challenges it. And we are unique because we are the only university based in the Highlands and Islands. But our campus is very different from most university campuses. Hence the modern bit. I think thanks to information technology, to the internet, to Wi-Fi, finding the appropriate ways to make the best possible use of modern technology to allow us to have different campuses. And the university has 13 further and higher education colleges, specialist colleges and research institutions in its partnership. And in its partnership with our students having the choice of studying at one of our colleges and research centres at over 50 local learning centres or online from home or work. And although that may sound like an easy option, the discipline required to study from home is much more difficult. Our vision is to be nationally and internationally recognised as a distinctive and innovative partnership which embraces both further and higher education. Our communities and culture should be at the heart of everything we do and be the lifeblood of our ambitions. Our university should build on the strengths of its constituent institutions, from Shetland to South Argyll, and contribute to their communities from Murray to Lewis. This new information technology allows our university to bring learning to our students and stem the flow of our young people heading away from their home communities to carry on their studies. That same technology allows us to offer the courses to both UK students and those from further afield, with the recent launch of our first international undergraduate degree. Taught online, Bachelor of Science Honours in Sustainable Development can be studied from anywhere in the world. This new degree joins a number of postgraduate programmes already available internationally through online study. When I visited several of the university facilities at the Centre for Health Science in Inverness last September, I was delighted how the Oral Health Science undergraduate teaching facility allows students in Dumfries and Stornoway to be taught via video link, as well as use of clever simulation. This type of degree course is a really good example of how our new university is already meeting the needs of its communities, but in this case for skilled dental practitioners. The Highlands and Islands are distinctive, and I'm pleased to see that its university reflects that distinction in the courses offered. Archaeology, textiles, marine science, music, tourism and hospitality, Gaelic language and history are just some of the subjects students can study at undergraduate through to postgraduate level. But these subjects are complemented by courses responding to the economic needs of the area, including energy engineering, oral health science, business management, and leisure management. Well, I think it majors on golf management. It is also this distinction which will continue to draw students from the rest of the UK and international students. The Highlands and Islands of Scotland are one of the most beautiful regions in Europe, some would say anywhere in the world, where students are able to study and live in an unspoilt natural environment. And research is undertaken across the partnership and at a number of specialist centres and academic departments. We are developing a strong reputation in certain niche areas, many of which draw directly from our local environment. Current research expertise includes environmental science, marine science, renewable energy generation, diabetes and cardiovascular science, Celtic and Nordic studies, archaeology, rural childhood and development, tourism and heritage, and history. And that's a pretty good starting point. And I've already had the pleasure of seeing the work of the Scottish Association for Marine Science, UHI, and toured their laboratories. And having talked to UK and international students about studying at SAMS, I know how highly regarded this specialist centre is in its field. And I look forward to visiting more of the academic partners in the future in my role of Chancellor. I do understand the responsibility of being Chancellor, but I understand it is a very particular responsibility in a new university. I do hope that the connections that I already have, my own interest in education in its broadest sense, and in technology in its widest use, will help us all to focus this university, new as it is, but with a really strong foundation to build on for the future. Not just for the Highlands and Islands, its people and its reputation, but for a much wider community, to benefit what I believe this community already understands in its enthusiastic support for education. So it is for these reasons I'm confident that the University of the Highlands and Islands will help development and prospects for this region, its people and its communities, but above all, to fulfill their potential. I hope all of you, and I thank you all for coming, but I hope all of you will enjoy the rest of today's proceedings. And I do very much look forward to developing my appointment as your Chancellor. Tapa Liv. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Royal Highness, for that address and for your support to us as a new university. Let me also say, and this is not in my script, it hasn't gone unnoticed that you welcomed us in Gaelic and signed off in Gaelic. I will just make sure that you will get all the material you need for an introductory course. We're very mindful of your many and varied public commitments, and so we're really very, very proud indeed that you are now our new Chancellor. Thank you very much. The University of the Highlands and Islands has recently unveiled its coat of arms, granted by the Lord Lion, King of Arms, the official responsible for heraldry in Scotland. It has been designed to reflect important aspects of this new university. A compass rose with a fleur-de-lis indicating north denotes the university's physical location. 2 open books symbolise learning. The university's partners are represented by 13 hazel trees, representing our 13 academic partners, and the tree, the hazel tree, is associated with wisdom in Celtic and Norse culture. Symbolic items like these are part of the fabric of universities, representing authority and their importance to society. Along with our mace, our new Chancellor, the coat of arms will be a reminder that the University of the Highlands and Islands now exists. Our coat of arms is the pictorial representation, if you wish, of a written order or letters patent. I would now ask the Lord Lion, King of Arms, to read and then present the university with the letters patent. The Lord Lion, King of Arms.
Your Royal Highness, Chancellor of the University, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great privilege and also a very great pleasure to be asked to present the letters patent of the arms which, as we've just heard, have been granted recently to the University. I shall now read the letters patent. To all and sundry whom these presents do or may concern, we, William David Hamilton Cellar, Lord Lion, King of Arms, send greeting, whereas, considering that under the provisions of the Lion, King of Arms Act 1672 and others in that behalf made, we are empowered by virtue of our office of Lord Lion, King of Arms, to visit the whole arms borne and used within this realm of Scotland, and to distinguish them with congruent differences and matriculate them in our books and registers, and to give arms to virtuous and well-deserving persons. These are the words of the Statute of 1672, incidentally, to virtuous and well-deserving persons under our hand and seal of office. And whereas the University of the Highlands and Islands, having registered office at Ness Walk, Inverness, having by petition unto us of date 15th April 2011, shown that in 1991, Highland Regional Council created a Highlands and Islands University Advisory Group to further the creation of an institution of higher learning, that of date 1st April 2001, the UHI Millennium Institute, successor to the University of the Highlands and Islands project, was designated as a higher education institution in terms of the designation of UHI Millennium Institute, Scotland Order 2001. That in terms of the academic awards and distinctions, UHI Millennium Institute, Scotland Order of Council, of date 1st August 2008, the Institute was granted taught degree awarding powers. That by letter of date 25th January 2011, the Privy Council granted to the UHI Millennium Institute the right to use the designation of university, and by certificate of incorporation of change of name of date 1st February 2011, the name was changed to University of Highlands and Islands. That the University of Highlands and Islands serves the counties of Argyll, Banff, Bute, Caithness, Inverness, Kinross, Murray, Nairn, Orkney, Perth, Ross and Cromarty, Shetland and Sutherland. And the petitioners, having prayed that there might be granted unto them such ensigns armorial as might be found suitable and according to the laws of arms, know ye therefore that we have devised and do by these presents assign, ratify and confirm unto the petitioners the following ensigns armorial, as depicted upon the margin hereof and matriculated of even date with these presents, upon the 60th page of the 90th volume of the Public Register of all arms and bearings in Scotland. And here we have what is at the kernel, the centre of any grant of arms, the blazon. Vide lecet, purpur, a compass rose, argent and sable, in chief a fleur-de-lis or, between two open books proper, binding and four edges or, a bordure argent, charged of 13 hazel leaves vert. In testimony whereof we have subscribed these presents, and the seal of our office is affixed here too, at Edinburgh, this 9th day of May, in the 61st year of the reign of our sovereign, Lady Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of her other realms and territories, Queen, Head of the Commonwealth, Defender of the Faith, and in the year of God, 2012. Subscribed, David Seller, Lion. And it now gives me the greatest possible pleasure to present these arms to the Chancellor of the University. Chancellor.
Thank you very much. Very good afternoon. It makes perfect sense. Thank you so much.
Your Royal Highlands, ladies and gentlemen, let me now introduce Lord Mackay of Clashfern, who will introduce candidates for fellowship of the university. Born in Edinburgh, Lord Mackay of Clashfern was educated at the University of Edinburgh and Trinity College, Cambridge, where he undertook degrees in mathematics and then went on to read law. In 1979, he was appointed Lord Advocate, the senior law officer in Scotland, and in the same year was created a life peer as Baron Mackay of Clashfern. In 1987, he was made Lord Chancellor, and he is patron of the University of the Highlands and Islands Development Trust. Lord Mackay was made an honorary fellow of the UHI Millennium Institute in 2007, and I now invite him to introduce the two candidates for honorary fellowship of the university.
Chancellor, Colin Mackay, CBE, was appointed Chairman of the Board of Governors of the UHI Millennium Institute in 2001. Notwithstanding Colin's long sojourn in Glasgow and his manifest affection for Scotland's second city, Colin's roots are in the Highlands and Islands and in the culture and religion of his Highland forebears. His father was born in Shieldaig in Wester Ross, and perhaps this had some influence in Colin's decision to take up the offer of chair of the UHI Board of Governors. As chairman of the board, Colin presided over the same period as Bob Cormack when the UHI Millennium Institute matured from being an exciting project to being a higher education institution. Colin Mackay came to UHI after a long and very distinguished career as a surgeon. Colin graduated in medicine from the University of Glasgow as a Brunton medalist. After a period in Boston, United States, as a Medical Research Council Fellow, which kindled in Colin and in Helen an enduring love for the United States of America, Colin took up a position in the University of Glasgow as a senior lecturer and subsequently as a consultant surgeon in Gart Naval General Hospital, Glasgow, combining clinical practice and academia. Colin pursued a distinguished career in medicine, teaching undergraduates and postgraduates, publishing research in fields of peptic ulcer, disease, and gallstones, with numerous papers and 2 editions of the textbook of surgical physiology, Ledingham and Mackay. Colin was devoted to the city of Glasgow and drew humour from its characters. Colin regaled his colleagues with a story of the time he and his son were emptying a flat containing a grandfather clock. Colin brought the clock out to the pavement. His son went to get the car. As it was a windy day, Colin put his arms round the clock in order to steady it. At that point, a local worthy happened to be passing, said to Colin, "Wee man, have you no got a watch?" Colin wore his academic distinction and professional reputation lightly, and this, together with an engaging personality, made Colin a gifted communicator and befriender of people in all walks of life. It is hardly surprising that this combination led to Colin's election in 1996 to the position of President of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow. This enabled Colin to function on a truly international scale and to realize his deep commitment to the training and education of consulting physicians, surgeons, and dentists locally, nationally, and internationally. This involved an immense amount of overseas travel and brought Colin recognition as a fellow and honorary fellow of many like-minded professional bodies across the world. Colin served on a number of public bodies, including Greater Glasgow Health Board, the General Medical Council, the Scottish Advisory Committee on Distinction Awards, and the United Kingdom Academy of Medical Royal Colleges. Colin's mother's family came from the Cowles of Bute, Argyll. Perhaps it was the fact that Colin was rooted in the wider UHI area and had a passion for education and training that fitted him to be such a distinguished chair of the Board of Governors of UHI. Colin perhaps was not fully prepared for the full force of the Scottish Funding Council and the QAA, and in particular found it difficult to remember the official line that U in UHI has no meaning and certainly did not signify the university word. Colin's experience in working with distinguished colleagues in his field was a good preparation for presiding over the Board of Governors in what were challenging and testing times. It is remarkable that in his long tenure of the board, that there were only 2 occasions when Colin had to reach a decision by voting instead of by general consensus. Colin's enduring interest in people ensured that he learned a lot about UHI, its innovative bent and its ambition to bring a good higher education experience to the far-flung parts of the Highlands and Islands. Colin shared and encouraged UHI in its onward progress to degree awarding powers, and this title and were indefatigable in helping the institution, its principal and its staff in achieving its goals. The attainment of taught degree awarding powers was a testimony to his superintendence of the institution, and it was a matter of regret that his tenure ended just as the foundations were laid for the successful acquisition of university title. Given his professional background, Colin took a special interest in the development of health-related activity in UHI and played a vital role in ensuring that UHI could break in credibly to diabetes research as an area for its work. This is evident today in the very successful research unit which UHI has in the Highland Institute of Diabetes and Cardiovascular Medicine, which our Chancellor referred to in the course of her address. Chancellor, for his distinguished service to higher education and for his application of his experience and learning to the creation of this university, I invite you as your first act as our Chancellor to confer the Honorary Fellowship of the University of the Highlands and Islands on Colin Mackay. Chancellor, Professor Robert John Cormack became Director and Chief Executive of the UHI Millennium Institute in 2001. Professor Cormack came to us from Queen's University in Belfast, where he spent some 28 years, successively becoming a senior lecturer, reader and professor of sociology. Bob Cormack gained an MA in sociology at the University of Aberdeen before undertaking graduate studies at Brown University, USA. As a native of Montrose, with some ancestral connections with Lossiemouth, Bob Cormack had some affinity with at least one of the many cultures that make up the rich platter that is UHI. Bob Cormack had a distinguished academic career in Queen's University. From 1993 to 95, he was Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Social Sciences before becoming Pro-Vice Chancellor in 1995. He was the co-director of the Centre for Research on Higher Education, a joint research centre of Queen's University and the University of Ulster, an important type of unity in that time. Robert Cormack was no ivory-towered academic. At Queen's, he authored many articles, reports and books, mainly in the general area of equal opportunities, but with an application to the issues which drove the troubles in Northern Ireland. He has held honorary professorships from Queen's University of Belfast and the University of Aberdeen. He was a member of the Joint Information Systems Committee. He also worked on a number of Council of European projects over the years, most notably on a working party set up to advise on the restructuring of Pristina University in Kosovo after the war there. Professor Cormack was a Woodrow Wilson Fellow in 1972, a Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts in 1999, and a Fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh in 2008. In 2001, he was appointed the Director and Chief Executive of UHI Millennium Institute, the predecessor of the University of the Highlands and Islands. UHI had just been recognized as a higher education institution. Bob Cormack set about consolidating its new status by establishing a highly professional office to ensure that it progressed to degree awarding powers and eventually to university title. Conventional universities in the UK were once famously described as collections of anarchists linked by a central heating system. Bob adapted that to saying that UHI was a collection of anarchists linked by a wide area network. Notwithstanding the highly dispersed and collegiate nature of UHI, with its fiercely independent academic partners, Bob was able to provide a uniting leadership. In January 2003, his title changed to that of Principal, a symbol of the maturation of the institution towards university status. Professor Cormack led the fledgling institution to to the acquisition of taught degree awarding powers in 2008. This was an essential prerequisite to university title, and within 2.5 years of his retirement, UHI did indeed become the University of the Highlands and Islands. Bob had a passionate commitment to bringing university education to the Highlands and Islands and to offer this community the choice of undertaking university education at home. During his tenure as principal, he travelled tirelessly and extensively in the Highlands and Islands. Even once, travelling with Colin Mackay, then chairman of the Board of Governors, from the Butt of Lewis to the tip of Barra. Within his office, this was dubbed as a new Boswell and Johnson Odyssey, without, of course, revealing who was Boswell and who was Johnson. Chancellor, for his services to higher education, for his application of his experience and learning to the real world, and his contribution to the legacy of an exciting and innovating university, I invite you, as your second act as our Chancellor, to confer on Professor Emeritus Robert John Cormack, Honorary Fellowship of the University of the Highlands and Islands.
Our ceremony is now coming to a close. Hamis an taig gehord gan holodyniagaf, dan efi call arain yn iesgyr o sio, san siarad fi sifaw am y sochson hori tiagos cwtramach gan yn olau sio. Agus hami giwri ar yf taig y chymal is yn olau sio, as na blion is yn a hatchien. I want to thank you all for coming today. I want to thank you for your support this afternoon in this ceremony. And I would ask you to keep supporting this new fledgling university in the years to come. I want to thank all the people who contributed to the ceremony itself this afternoon. In particular, I want to thank the Lord Lion of Arms. I was so excited by your new Chancellor speaking in Gaelic that I forgot to thank you during the ceremony. I want to thank all the staff, both from the University of the Highlands and Islands, from the colleges, from the academic partners, and from the cathedral, who made this occasion possible. And I invite you all now to come back with us to our executive office for refreshments. We thank especially the Princess Royal for accepting our invitation to become our new Chancellor, and for making this a royal occasion in the very week of the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. Hugely historic, hugely significant, and so very exciting for us. I would ask the Bishop of Moray, Ross and Caithness, the Right Reverend Mark Strange, to give his blessing. In doing so, can I again thank him on behalf of the University for the support and help we have received from him and his colleagues in organising this event. And after the blessing, can I ask you all to remain seated until the academic party has departed the cathedral. Thank you all very much.
Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the Son of Peace to you. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be upon you and remain with you always. Amen.